you please conduct roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Adams.
Present.
Mr. Groh is running a little late. Mr. Melvin.
Here.
Chairman Wendell.
Here.
Mr. Araby. Mr. Otan. Mrs. Delin Chasson is absent. Mr. Lorraine. And President Chasson is not with us tonight, correct, Mr. Orgeron?
Correct. Absent.
Okay, if everyone would please rise, our invocation will be led by Mr. Melvin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Adams.
I'll just read a couple lines from St. Teresa of Avila, following the Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Let nothing trouble you, nothing frighten you. All things are passing, God never changes. Patient endurance attains all things. Whoever possesses God lacks nothing. God alone suffices. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on behalf of the council, we'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. If you would like to address the council, please fill out a blue public wishing to address the council form located by the entrance door and turn it into the council clerk prior to the beginning of the public address session. Please silence any cellular or other communication devices to avoid interruptions. As we proceed through the meeting, public comment will be offered on each of the ordinances for ratification before council discussion and voting. As we move through the resolutions, only the council will discuss prior to voting. Item A, I have a motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Adams to accept the minutes of the April 12th, 2022 regular session. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absences being Ms. Chasson and Mr. Groh. Item B, we have none. Item C, any state or federal updates? No state or federal updates. We move into item D, proclamations. Item 2, Parish Administration to present a proclamation proclaiming the week of May 1st through May 7th as National Travel and Tourism Week. Mr. Orgeron.
Whereas the future of travel will be a constant driver of Lafourche Parish's economy and workforce, and whereas a robust travel industry provides significant economic benefits for the nation, generating more than $2.6 trillion in economic output prior to the pandemic, with $1.2 trillion spent directly by travelers in the U.S., and whereas travel has been the foundation of a healthy workforce, serving as one of the largest private sector employers in the United States, supporting 17 million jobs prior to the pandemic. And whereas spending by travelers has aided state and local governments alike, generating $90 billion in state and local tax revenue prior to the pandemic in support of essential services and programs. And whereas promoting America as a premier destination for global travelers is more important than ever as we recover from steep losses. The future of travel is connecting the U.S. to the global community and safely and securely welcoming them back to our communities, including Lafourche Parish. And whereas promoting Louisiana's Cajun Bayou, Lafourche Parish, as a year-round regional, national, and international travel destination is vital to our local economy, creates tax revenues not paid by residents that fund important public services. And whereas tourism generated $76 million in visitor spending, $5 million in state taxes, and $2.9 million in local taxes in 2020 in Lafourche. And whereas traveler spending has a direct economic impact of $54 million prior to the pandemic and supports over 1,000 jobs in Lafourche Parish. And whereas the rebound of travel will drive the rebuilding of the U.S. economy and the American workforce, since prior to the pandemic, 60% of leisure and hospitality employment was small business. And whereas the future of travel will prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, powering a future that values all cultures, embraces new perspectives, and reflects the faces and ideas of a full American society. And whereas the future of travel will foster a faster recovery, create a more sustainable, seamless, and secure traveler experience, and build a Foosh Parish's visitor economy, driving us toward a more prosperous future. And now, therefore, Archie Chasson, President of Lafourche Parish, do hereby proclaim May 1st through 7th, 2022 as National Travel and Tourism Week. In witness thereof, he unto sets his signature and has affixed the official seal of Lafourche Parish, State of Louisiana, on this 26th day of April 2022.
And I believe we have Mr. Cody Gray, President and CEO of Louisiana Bayou Country, Lafourche Parish, to accept that. Cody, thanks for coming out and accept that. And also, I see you at almost everything I go to, so I want to thank you for being an advocate and a good sport also for the residents of Lafourche. Keep them coming. Anything else, Ms. Dozier?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Item E, presentations and our updates. Item 3, Mr. Furnace J. LeBlanc, Ochsner Bayou Region CEO, and Mr. Leonard St. Pierre, Chairman of Lafourche Parish Hospital Service District Number 2, to present their annual report. Welcome, gentlemen. Please remember to state your name and address for the record, please.
Furnace of Law, 388 Longdale Drive.
Can you make sure the microphone is on, the green light, and speak into
There
it?
we go. You guys can hear me now? Okay, Furnace of Law, 388 Longdale Drive, Shreveport, Louisiana. Thank you. I want to say thanks to the council for allowing me to come tonight to do our annual report for Ochsner St. Anne. Go ahead and get started. So Ochsner St. Anne, you guys know us. We have a total of 300 dedicated staff members, roughly, including 24 locally based physicians and advanced or APPs, mid-levels at the hospital. In total, we have about 478 docs that are licensed or credentialed to provide care at the hospital. Wanted to make a couple notes on this, that there's a couple new additions this year. We now have a new cardiologist that's at St. Anne, and also an endocrinologist, which is, as y'all know, is a big need at the hospital given the prevalence of diabetes in the area. Through 2021, we thought we were in a good place at the beginning of that year, coming out of 2020. Little did we know that we still had the worst of COVID to come, and we had a hurricane kind of coming at us that everybody knows, Hurricane Ida. Through all of that, we remain committed to the patients of this area of Central Lafourche. We were able to serve nearly 35,000 patients in 2021, and this is about a 15% increase over 2020. Part of that was an increase in the emergency room visits. We saw a little over 20,000 patients in the ED, which is a 16% increase year over year. ED daughter, something that I'm proud of, and we've been maintaining this statistic for several years now, and it's what we call ED to daughter provider time, basically how long it is when you walk in that front door to see a doc. That's under 10 minutes right now. The national average is probably, the goal is 30 minutes, and y'all know if you go into a hospital, it's not nearly that. It could be several hours. So we're proud of the work that the team does to get people in under 10 minutes at St. Anne. Also, something that I'm proud of is that we, Ochsner St. Anne, served as the regional infusion center that during COVID, and we treated nearly 1,800 people with life-saving monoclonal antibodies. So that was a big deal, especially at the height of COVID. And like I said, y'all, that truly saved lives, us being able to do that in the community. I'm proud of that. Some other stats that I want to talk about just for a second is patient experience, right? That's the thing that's important to us at the hospital. In our emergency room, we were ranked in the top 15% of hospitals nationally, and that's probably in the neighborhood somewhere around 5,000 hospitals. So it's a great achievement. Also in the outpatient area, we were ranked in the top 5%. Inpatient services ranked in the top 20, and the clinics ranked in the top 10% nationally. So the team's doing a great job in patient experience at the hospital. Through all of this, through the hurricane, through the pandemic, people have been a big focus of ours and part of our strategic initiative going forward into 2022 as well. I wanted to mention a couple of things that we did for our folks during the pandemic, that we established numerous programs to support the staff and providers, and we included that's paid quarantine leave, wellness resources, redeployment of staff to assure full employment. We didn't send anybody home. You know, the hospitals, a lot of the operations changed during the pandemic, and if you were in an area that maybe got taken out for some reason, we just put you in another place and you kept getting a paycheck. We were adamant about that. We also remain committed to compensation programs, including annual merit and retirement contributions, and implemented temporary pay programs to increase capacity during the pandemic as well. Another stat that I'm proud of, and this is in partnership with our local HSD, is community wellness. And this has been a multi-year thing that for years we've been providing a lot of services to the folks of Central Lafourche and generally Lafourche Parish. In 2021, we touched about 2,300 Lafourche residents serving or getting out 913 comprehensive health screenings, 439 flu vaccines. We administered just north of, or nearly 4,500 COVID-19 vaccines and about 900 boosters to the community, and this is all free of cost, y'all, when we're out here doing that. I'm going to move on to Hurricane Ida. So Hurricane Ida was, as everyone in this area, was devastating, and that was no different to us at the hospital, where we sustained significant roof damage to the hospital that caused water to penetrate into the building, causing us to close the hospital, everything except the emergency room. That, thank goodness, we were able to salvage that and maintain operations, never having to shut that down. A couple points I wanted to make here is that shortly after, maybe a week and a half after that significant damage, after the storm, we were able to restore clinic appointments, our med-surg unit, which is where our sick patients go to be taken care of by our doctors, and outpatient services resumed in the hospital. So just really with lightning speed, we were able to get things back open in the hospital. Not fully functional in terms of the whole hospital, but enough to take care of the people in this area. Also, the dollars totaled probably somewhere north of $4 million in terms of the recovery, getting that hospital and the clinics back where it needed to be. The economic impact of Ochsner St. Anne in the community is, I'm talking the salaries and benefits, totaled somewhere in the neighborhood of $32 million in 2021, generating over $128 million in economic benefit to the region. We've invested over $6 million in improvements to the facility in 2021, and that totaled since the inception, since the partnership with Ochsner, it's about $21 million since 2006. We've paid $451,000 in parish taxes. That's up about 15% year over year. And over $5 million have been paid to vendors from Lafourche Parish. And that's something that we're proud of and we're focused every year. And that's up year over year by about $2 million. The last part of the report that I want to get out to y'all, in 2021, we've received several rewards and recognition, but there's two of them that I want to highlight here. One of those is that we were named by the U.S., these are national recognitions, by the U.S. News and Report, listed St. Anne as a top maternity care, that we were one of 3 hospitals in the state. So that's something we're really proud of, and we have a high-quality OBGYN program at the hospital. The other one is that we were recognized by the Chartist Group as one of the top 100 critical access hospitals in the nation in last year, or actually this year in 2022. That's, if you look across the nation, there's about a little over 1,300 critical access hospitals. We're the only one in the state, and we're the only one in the southern part of the United States, and I'm talking basically Tennessee and below. There's 15 or so states that we're the only hospital. So that's something that we've been working hard towards for the past several years. That's been a goal of ours. First, it was we wanted to be the best in the state. Now we're the best in maybe the southern part of the United States. So really proud of the work that the team, the providers have done at Ochsner St. Anne to take care of our patients in a great way. With that, y'all, that's the end of the report. If I would be happy to take any questions or comments from the council.
Anyone with any questions for Mr. LeBlanc? Mr. Melvin.
Hi, Mr. Furness. Thank you for being here. I appreciate Mr. St. Pierre being here too, and for what y'all do for our community.
Yes, sir.
I was curious, we always hear about the supply chain crisis currently going on, and everybody has an opinion and some ideas as to why, but do y'all see this, at least in your community here in Raceland or through Ochsner's? Or?
Yeah. Look, we do. It's there in the healthcare industry. I think it was more present in the heart of COVID. The thing, Mr. Melvin, is that we were blessed and fortunate that we were part of Ochsner, that throughout the pandemic, we were never in need of, maybe it was PPE or any other supplies. We had what we needed to safely take care of patients. So I think that's one of the benefits of being part of a bigger system like Ochsner. It's there, but it's buffered and it's mitigated because of the scale of the company that we're part of.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, how long have you been by Raceland, St. Anne, Ochsner?
It's coming up, I think it's since 2006 is when we initially partnered with the hospital.
Weren't you in Morgan City at one time?
Yes, sir. I previously served as the COO at St. Anne for several years, and now, and it kind of moved, and I was more recently the CEO in Morgan City, and now I'm the regional CEO that covers Morgan City, Chabert, and St. Anne. So St. Anne's back under my purview, so to speak.
And looking at healthcare in Oshner, it seems like everywhere you go, they basically partnership with whoever. That's what I see, just about everywhere I go to.
Yeah, it's a...
merge or whatever you want to call it.
Right. It's a great thing, Ms. Lorraine. There's things that really benefits the patient, right? There's some economies of scale that comes with that. And when you look at the computer system, for instance, that we use in the hospital, it's called Epic. But when that happens, when there's connections of Oshner made at different clinics, hospitals, different buildings, there's continuity of care. So no matter where you go, whether you're going to right here in Raceland, you can go to Morgan City, you can go to New Orleans, you can go to Baton Rouge, it's going to be the same type of care. Your medical record follows you wherever you go. So that continuity is valuable and it's safe, right? So all the doctors know that what's been done with you, they're all on the same page. So there's a real benefit in that.
So my question, I'd like to ask Leonard a question. He's a board member.
Mm-hmm.
And
Excuse me. Without a bro.
Leonard St. Pierre, 7707 Highway 308, Lockport, Louisiana.
so how long have you been a board member?
36 years.
Okay.
Up
Damn, I
by
got you
Oak
beat.
Ridge in the front yard.
Okay. So you were on there prior to Oshner coming in?
Correct.
Okay, so my question would be, before Oshner came there, I would have to say that St. Anne and Lady of the Sea Hospital down the bayou were practically two hospitals. One might have been better than the other, but very close. But since Oshner came in, there was a big difference, right?
Daniel, we recognized probably in 2004 that we could manage the hospital, but we couldn't grow it. In the climate we were in, we had two major medical centers along with Chabert within 30 miles of us. And we had a very minimal tax base. We collected 2 mills at the highest. Right now, we collect 1.8 mills, and that generates under $300,000. So that wasn't going to be our revenue source. So in order to grow the hospital, we recognized that affiliation, and that was a new concept at that time. Today, it's the buzzword in the industry. And we took 2 years in studying and preparing for this, and we looked at all of our options, and we recognized that Oshner was our best option. And Oshner came in and partnered with us. They didn't come in and take over our St. Anne. It became Oshner St. Anne, a partnership. And over the past 16 years, it truly has functioned as a partnership. So,
But the key issue would be that they manage it, right?
well, it's their hospital to run. That's correct. Now, we have input and we have oversight.
Right, I'm sure you
And
do.
we have, the hospital actually is managed by the Bayou Board, which we have membership on, and annually we evaluate Oshner's performance. So we have oversight over final decisions of services that may be deleted or removed from the hospital. So yes, we do.
So would you be willing to say, since all this happened, you have more doctors, you got more equipment, and you probably have better service?
Well, Daniel, I'm going to tell you what was my driving force in what drove my decision 16 years ago. I requested from Oshner by zip code in area that we served, the number of clinic days, clinic visits they had from this area, and the number of patient discharge days they had in this area. We had over 10,000 clinic visits a year at the Oshner, and we had over, I think it's 1,700 or 1,800 patient days at Oshner. So people were leaving the area to go to Oshner. Oshner afforded us the opportunity with affiliation. We'll bring those services here, and those services were primarily in the area of pediatric and geriatric care, the youngest and the oldest in our community. And they brought those services here. If you look at that list, you see pediatric care, pediatric cardiology, pediatric gastroenterology, that means they don't have to take their kids over there to see those specialists. They come here 1 or 2 days a week.
Right.
So it's been an outstanding relationship, and it's been a true benefit, and you can see the accomplishments. You know, that's not, we didn't go out and apply for any of these awards, you see. These awards are based on your performance and what they see as the outcomes. That's where those awards come from. We didn't apply for any of them. They came in and recognized us for them.
Right, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that they actually, like you said, you have this board, but they actually
Oh, they run the
administer
hospital.
everything.
It's their hospital to run, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
But thank you, man, and
No problem, sir.
thank you for serving.
Well, to your point, Oyster is so proactive, okay? You know, some of the things they do just amaze me. But Oyster is actually going to manufacturing now. They're manufacturing their own personal protection devices. They've got a plant in Texas now where they're manufacturing gloves, gowns, everything else that they need to run a hospital. You know, Oyster's going into the manufacturing of it as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. St. Pierre, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Otan.
I just wanted to tell Mr. St. Pierre while he's got the mic, thank you for his service to our community. And I call him Mr. St. Pierre because since the Raceland Junior High days, it was Mr. St. Pierre and Miss St. Pierre, as they were educators. So thank you for your continued
Norman,
service
thank
to our
you very
community.
much, and Norman is a very good student, I want you to understand. I never complained about, never done, my work is good work.
Thank you, Mr.
And look,
Otan.
thank you all very much for your public service.
Thank you, Mr. St. Pierre. Mr. LeBeau, thank you for the report. Item number 4, presentation by New Fortress Energy regarding their NFE Louisiana FLNG project. Just make sure you state your name and address for the record, sir.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for letting me present here today before you. My name is James Outram. I'm representing New Fortress Energy. New Fortress Energy is actually headquartered out of New York. I am actually from Texas. It's 5 Laurel Oak, Texas. And again, I want to thank you guys so much for letting me speak to you here today. Got a quick presentation, try to get it through it fairly quickly. Absolutely, absolutely. Better? Yes. Perfect. So I want to start out by describing New Fortress Energy here real quickly. They have their mission is to help customers replace oil-based fuels with cleaner, safer natural gas. That includes building, operating LNG terminals and facilities, sourcing LNG, and providing logistics and supplying LNG to customers. So New Fortress has an extensive portfolio of downstream infrastructure. They have 21 assets online today, generating about 3.5 gigawatts of power in about 12 different countries. So as we see here on this presentation, the blue dots are actually assets that they have in operation right now. The green dots are assets under development. So what New Fortress Energy does is goes into areas which are energy impoverished, and they are bringing natural gas to those areas so that they have a fuel source which is more affordable and cleaner burning on there. They have a $11 billion enterprise value. They are listed on the NASDAQ, ticker is NFE, and they have a BB credit rating. So with those 21 assets, they've done 750 plus ship transfer operations, 12,000 truck and rail loading operations. They have 800 direct and indirect employees, 98% reliability, 97% availability across all the assets. But the biggest number on this slide is 0. They have 0 lost time injuries across all the operating assets. NFE truly wants to be safe. So to be able to get the natural gas to the customers, they've identified a unique solution for this, and this is going to be an offshore natural gas liquefaction facility on platforms. LNG, Louisiana is no stranger to LNG export facilities, but why offshore? Well, the time it takes to be able to build and have these operations 50 to 70% less, It's a 30 to 50% less estimated cost of construction, and it has a significantly less environmental footprint, Mark. This project itself, the one that we're proposing, is going to be 16 nautical miles off of Grand Isle. It is utilizing existing marine infrastructure assets, and everything will be designed and built here in the U.S. Want to get a little bit into the details. This is a top-down overview of the project. So it is going to be two 1.4 MTPA trains. One train is going to consist of 3 different platforms. There is going to be a utility platform. This is where the crews are going to be housed, helideck, flares, and power generation. The second platform is going to be the where the feed gas comes in and gets processed, so it's gas processing. That's going to dehydrate the gas, and it is going to clean it up for the liquefaction, which is going to be the third platform. That's going to take the natural gas to a cryogenic temperature, transform it into a liquid, and that will be transferred to a floating storage unit, or FSU. So that's going to be the ship there on the far left. So there's 2 trains. There's that vertical 3-platform structure and the horizontal 3-platform structure. Both of those are transferring liquid LNG into the FSU. The FSU, after it fills up, will be transfer that to an LNG carrier, which will carry it to customers around the world. Top right-hand corner, there is a compressor stations, making sure that the pipeline, the gas hits the facilities with enough pressure to be able to run them. So, a little bit more detail on the locations on this. It's going to be West Delta 38. Those green dot structure, bottom left-hand corner of that is going to be the Loop project out there. We are utilizing existing pipeline infrastructure. That's going to be the Connecticut gas pipeline. Yeah, that's it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Mr. Melvin?
Yes, sir, thank you, that's very interesting. I'm all about, new technology, even though, that's what we're so used to oil, and I'm all about that too. My question is twofold. Number one, do y'all find in the process of making and freezing and cryogenics and everything else, they use that for all kind of things, of course, do y'all find it's more or less expensive than to produce oil as an end product from beginning to end? The LNG, the gas versus the oil?
So it depending on where so in a lot of places, the natural gas is actually the top layer. Before you get to the oil, you're actually going to have natural gas come out of that.
Yes, sir.
So that feedstock gas on that, what we're really trying to do is be able to take that gas, that natural gas, and get it from Louisiana, which is rich in it, to be able to get it to other countries. And the best way to be able to do that, other than building a pipeline all the way across the ocean to be able to do that, is actually liquefy it and be able to store a lot of it.
So that's part of my second question, and it's like this here. So it seems like some of the stuff's made in the U.S. I like some of the things you had up there.
Absolutely.
Kind of question about going to all these other countries when it's made here. I'm sure we're going to be making some money on this, but I don't know what the U.S. gets to keep as far as, this product or storage or us using it.
No, absolutely, and it's a wonderful question. Ever since the fracking revolution happened here in the U.S., we have enough oil and gas here in the U.S. to fulfill our own needs, be completely energy independent. Not only fulfill our own needs, but actually be able to export it to other countries to be able to provide energy security, such as some of the stuff that you've seen with the Russia-Ukraine invasion.
Yes, sir. So that does it. You just almost answered my last question, but I just wanted to make sure. Are you getting any pushback from Washington, D.C., or the the people that really don't like the country, in my opinion, who want to see us grow and do well here?
And that's a very good question. We have not run into, we are in the permitting phase of this project, and we have not run into severe headwinds as of yet, but we want to make sure that we're getting in front of everybody that we could get in front of, generate support for this project. So nothing as of yet, but.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Lorraine?
Yes, this would be in federal waters,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir, it would be.
So is it tough getting the permits from the feds, or?
So it's a very interesting question, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into the permitting process on here. So the two lead agencies for this is going to be MARAD, which is under DOT, and the Coast Guard. There's multiple other cooperating agencies for that. MARAD and Coast Guard do have a statutory timeline, 256 days, to be able to get this process from start to end. There is some stop time that may happen if things they feel are incomplete in the project. So far, through the process, we have not encountered any resistance.
So this is similar, an operation similar to Loop?
Not necessarily.
Not exactly.
And I'm not completely familiar with the Loop project on here. It will be exporting, but it is only natural gas for this.
Okay.
So, yeah, and the Loop is a oil exporting.
I'm familiar with LNG because I worked for Guidry Brothers for 3-4 years, and they have their own LNG tanks at Port Fouchon, and they service their own boats. They probably have 3, 4, 5 boats that run off of LNG. You know, they don't sell it to anybody, they just use it for their own company.
Absolutely.
So I saw them building them tanks, and we had many discussions on, some people think that it can just blow up, you know, it's not quite like gas, natural gas or liquid gas. And it's not as bad as, because we with the previous parish presidents, we had discussions and it was okay. And so you're going to be located 17 miles off of Grand Isle, probably east of Loop, I would think.
Yes, no, absolutely. And the location on that one, yes, we are east of the Loop project on there. So the exclusion zone boundaries, they will not run into each other. There'll be passage between both of those projects.
And I know there was some talk about the Port Commission coming up with an LNG plant on land, but I guess that would be a little bit different than what y'all are doing, I would assume. Or maybe, I'll tell you what you could do. Go ahead and build your facility over there and come build one by the port on land.
I got you.
It's a good deal. I'll help you out as much as I can.
We'll see if we could do it.
Okay, buddy, thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming.
Mr. Lorraine. Thank you very much, sir.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much.
Okay, item F, we do not have any legal advisory reports. Item G, engineers and architects. Any engineers or architects? Last call, engineers and architects. Moving on to item H, public wishing to address the council, public hearings, agenda items, etc. Ms. Carlene.
Ms. Jamie Malbrew, if you'd come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Ms. Malbrew, and please remember you have 3 minutes.
My name is Jamie Marble. I live at 116 Celeste Lane, Lockport, Louisiana, 70374. Good evening, all. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to speak as our First Amendment on our Constitution allows me to do so. If you have questions, please wait until I'm done speaking, and I'll be happy to answer them with you in a constructive manner. There are 3 proposed FEMA trailer park sites in the Lockport area that in total will house 833 families. According to the parish president, an email stated as of April 6, 2022, that there are 2,300 roughly that need to be housed. I believe this to be individuals and not families. Upon doing a Freedom of Information Act, I was provided with an email that the parish president forwarded to Jared Martin, superintendent of schools, on March 11, 2022 from FEMA with a breakdown of some of the numbers that we have been asking for. Of the 296 households on hold for commercial park group sites, units in Lafourche, 194 households reside in or near the Lockport, Louisiana area with the zip codes of 70030, 70301, 70354, 70357, 70373, 70374, 70394, 70375. Of the 194 households, 98 households have children of school age. The total number of school-age children are 196 according to the email. Ms. Hayes stated to me today that the parish or local government makes the decisions and the request that it moves up to the chain to the state and federal. If I understood correctly, the decisions are that of the local government. That coincides with a 12-page document on FEMA's website that explains FEMA's involvement in natural disasters. FEMA has to look at environmentals as well and the wetlands. That has been law for many years. Many of the trailer park owners that have been here talking about placing trailers on their land had to meet these requirements for the state as it is. The greatest question of all is why are people still needing homes 8 months later, when there were countless people that would have been more than happy to house people on their land that had infrastructure to do so, not for a buck or greed, but because we all try to help one another and do not like the living conditions that our neighbors have to live in. The email referenced above leads me to ask the questions of how many are from each zip code. Where are the 102 families coming from in this email that were not Foosh Parish, and why do we need an additional 537 housing sites? Who will be housed in these trailers, and where are they coming from? According to this email on March 11th, 2022, only 194 Lafourche Parish residents needed to be housed, and then on March 29th, 2022, there was an increased need for over 500 more. It was my understanding from the Lieutenant Governor's office this last week that there will now only be one site in Lockport for 200 residents, housing sites. The request for families by zip code is still pending with the Lieutenant Governor's office. And has the council or parish president been told this? And I have been told that it is FEMA, and my issue is with FEMA. And if I understood FEMA today, Ms. Hayes, this is a local and state issue. There is some confusion with this as I am understanding it in two different ways. I don't know what to believe anymore. That's what's being told. So again, some of you know I've asked if this falls on FEMA to help these small business owners that have been here talking with you about this, the residents that are on their third appeals, living in rat and mold infested homes, in their cars, in tents, to get help to go to DC and go to our federal legislators, because this is not okay. And some of you have been very ugly to me. And Mr. Otan, I do have
Ms. Marlboro,
concerns.
you have to address the chair, and your time is up. Anyone with any questions for Ms. Marlboro? We thank you very much for that information.
Thank you.
Ms. Carlene?
Mr. Farrell Trahan, to come to the podium. Mr. Trahan, state your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
Farrell Trahan, 120 West 85th Street, Cutoff, Louisiana. After a bunch of phone calls today, I got some information. The Lafourche Parish Recreational District number 3 is not having a season for the South Lafourche Youth Organization. I was told the field should be ready March 13th or 14th, I believe it is. And being they're not using the field, who would I have to speak to be able to start my own league this year, use the building that South Lafourche is using to store their equipment in, so that I can run these kids in a league this year? I have my EIN number. I'm ready to go. I got to get equipment, donations to get it started. But I'd like to be able to get our kids back playing on the field. Between COVID-19 and the hurricane, that's 2 seasons these kids have not played. And that will affect the South Lafourche team. It may not affect Central and Thibodeau, but it will affect the South Lafourche upcoming team with these kids not playing ball. So my question would be is, who do I need to get with? I was told Ms. Jennifer, which I have no idea who she is. And I was told that the last 2 board meetings were not held because of a lack of quorum, and they've gone as much as 6 months in a row without a meeting. I understand it's a volunteer position, but if these people go volunteer and they will not show up for a meeting, they need to be asked to be removed so people like myself that are concerned can get in there. I have 5 grandsons right now ready to play ball, but I got to go through all kinds of approvals and everything else. So I was just wondering who I'd have to speak to and if I could get possibly contacted with them to see about getting the league started.
Thank you, Mr. Trahan. If
Thank
you
you.
would come write your phone number on here. I have your name and address on there already.
Yes, sir.
I'll get with Ms. Jennifer in Recreation tomorrow, and someone can reach out to you, answer some of your questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Otan.
I will comment that I know that through COVID, that there were some third-party organizations that were allowed because we had the restrictions with COVID where the governor wouldn't allow us to do it. So I know that it has happened before but there are some insurance issues.
Well, the thing is, South Lafourche Youth Baseball is a private organization. It is not a parish organization, just like I'm a private organization. I've respected that they had the field. They put it on. I understand their season usually starts in March, but because of COVID and the hurricane, they decided this year, I don't know which meeting, not to have a season this year. So if they're not going to use the field, I'd like to be able to have the field. If I got two teams, I got two teams. If I have 20, I got 20. But these kids need to stay off the streets. The ball fields, from what I understand, will be properly maintained, ready to go for May 14th is the date I was told. And I'd like to start no later than June 1st if possible. Even if we play 5 games, I don't care. These kids need to get out of the neighborhoods, out of the devastated homes, and enjoy themselves.
All right,
And
Mr.
thank you,
Trahan,
Mr.
I
Tam.
will, I'll see if Ms. Jennifer in Recreation can
Thank you very
contact
much,
sir.
Mr. Jim.
Ms. Carleen.
Dr. J.D. Zackley, you come to the podium, Dr. Lee. And I did, the handout that you presented tonight, the council has a copy of all of that, because what you sent to me and I made for them for the meeting tonight is different than what this one is.
Thank you, Ms. Babin. My name is Zach Lee. I'm from Covington, Louisiana. I'm here to advocate for the full development of the parish oyster industry. The parish is blessed with one of the greatest resources in the United States, if not the world, for producing oysters. As we know, the oyster is the keystone species of the coastal zone. When oysters do well, speckled trout do well. When shrimp do well, crabs do well. The sports fisher people that come to catch these species do well, and the people that serve them do well. This is a vast opportunity that we are missing in the way that we're managing this industry. I'm going to give you a couple of what you can call are extravagant figures, but I'm just trying to illustrate what is possible. We have something like 23,411 acres of oyster leases in Lafourche Parish. If those acres were producing oysters at a reasonable rate of 200 sacks per acre, Lafourche Parish would be producing more than double the amount of oysters produced by the state of Louisiana. So we would be more than quadrupling what we're producing in this parish. One of the things that state governments and parish governments, certainly parish governments do, is set in place the groundwork, the game rules for managing economic development. You set up the rules, and the private sector uses those rules to produce value from the resources that you have. By providing the proper incentives for this oyster industry to develop, you can encourage its development. And I think that you also need to focus on the fact that you can be producing oysters and combining that with a vast increase in the value of your storm protection structures across the coast. They go hand in hand, storm protection and oyster production. One thing that I'd like for you to consider to do, that's a very minor part of the incentive structure, but it's something that the parish can do itself without relying on higher levels of government. And that is when a person applies for an oyster farming permit, they have to get a coastal use permit from the parish. The parish charges a fee for those, and that fee is just really unreasonably high in terms of trying to get people to get into the industry. For example, if you're applying for an acre of oysters, a farm of only 1 acre, the fee is $800. It goes into, for 3 acres or so, it goes up to $1,000. The rates are not consistent with the value that is being produced by the private sector.
Mr.
I'm
Grow
sorry.
relinquishes 3 more minutes. Wait, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much for this extended time. As you may or may not know, Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority and the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries have begun to promoting what is called alternative oyster culture, and that's basically raising oysters in cages. Some of the cages you've seen is Grand Isle floating on the water, some are on bottom, and some are in a device that we're selling. It's called a shellevator. So they are promoting this industry by this way. The great thing about this is that if you understand oyster development traditionally, most of the people that own oyster leases, like these 23,000 acres of oysters, they don't use but a very small fraction of that land because most of it is too soft. The mud is too soft for traditional practices of scattering shell or rock on the surface of the bottom and then using a scraper or, as we call them, a dredge to dredge the oysters up. With this new technology, we can utilize that underutilized land, that 80% that is not currently being used. And so simple math would say that we could quadruple the production of oysters in this parish by allowing the full development of this new technology. Please, any questions?
Anybody with anything for Dr. Lee? Mr. Grow, and for the record, Mr. Grow entered the chambers at 5:41 PM.
Thank you. So you mentioned neighboring parishes, Jefferson and Plaquemine. What are the other, coastal parishes charging?
Well, one
Are
of the
we
better
in line
ones,
with
one of the more incentivizing ones is Plaquemine Parish, which charges $500 for any level of production, any level of acreage put under a farm.
But it's like, 13 coastal parishes? I mean, what about the other ones? You referenced 3. I was just wondering, if we way out of line or,
We are at $800 per acre for the first acre, $1,000 for the next 3 acres. Terrebonne Parish is about the same as that. Jefferson Parish is much less. It is charging something like $300
Right, I see
for a large number of acres. In other words, for a base rate that goes to any number of acres. My point is,
what about like St. Mary and,
I don't know about
You don't
those,
know,
sir.
okay, all right.
but my point, sir, is that if it costs the parish $100 to process one application for 1 acre, why does it cost the parish $800 or $1,000 or $5,000 to process an application for multiple acres?
Right. I'm sure that could be argued on any permit we have. I was just wondering
Yeah.
if you knew where we were with the other ones.
Yes.
Or if you truly knew of a lot of oyster farmers that aren't coming over to us because they locked because of a couple $100 here and there.
That's not a big deal.
Okay.
Really, $100 or $1,000. I know a person that I've helped apply for a permit in Leeville, for example, is paying $1,000 to the parish. But if you consider what he would do with that money if he didn't give it to the parish, he would be investing it in what the parish wants, that is, the development of the oyster industry. He would be buying equipment, oyster seed, et cetera, rather than giving it to the parish. And I understand that perhaps when the fee schedule was first set up, it would maybe have been set up to discourage people from developing the wetlands and trying to encourage people to conserve the wetlands. Well, this is not in wetlands, basically. It's on water bottom. And so the oyster reefs and farms that we will be producing are actually helping improve the environmental aspects of the coastal zone. Oysters, as you know, help protect the wetland margin from erosion. What we have is a sustainable, ecologically sound, tourist attractive industry that we're not exploiting to its fullest. I urge you to consider doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Grow. Mr. Otan.
Yeah, so, I mean, I kind of differ a little bit. I think you're taking a footprint on the water, and there should be some compensation in some way or another, but I was kind of curious to know what your affiliation is, say, with Nicholls State University and/or with the LSU Cooperative Extension here. I mean, those are entities that have generally, historically been involved with the oyster industry here. And so do you have a good, close working relationship with them? We haven't heard from them that we should consider reducing unless someone else has. I haven't. But I just wonder that relationship.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't decided that. I've talked to them about it. Dr. Earl Malonzo, as you know, is a very high-ranking member of that organization. I talk to him all the time. When I asked them about trying to modify the game rules, they told me that it's not their policy to get involved with policy. So they can't come and advocate before you to reduce that rule.
So I know the LSU Ag Extension has, but I mean, Dr. Earl, so as an undergrad back in the 80s, I did a lot of work with oysters, man-made versus natural, doing the conditioned indexes and going to actually pull samples and stuff. So I don't know, I remember the big push for radiation and all of those kind of things. I just think that for everybody, and I understand you're pitching a good point, and you've given us a lot of documentation. I appreciate that, but I really think that needs to be a group effort, whether it's with LSU, whether it's with Nicholls, but there should be other entities on board with this as well. It seems like you're just the sole soldier out there trying to get this technology push, and I think really getting a group would be much more to your advantage.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. It's my retirement project that I'm doing. I believe that our resources are underdeveloped and underutilized, and I can't go back to the university and join their group again, but I can advocate as much as possible and try to help people like you understand that it is a group effort. LSU can only do so much, but you have your role to play too, and that is, for me, it's publicly acknowledging or signaling that the parish is interested in developing its oyster industry. This is a very simple way to do that. And all of that, you know, as one other thing I can say about LSU, you know, they were just recently providing grants to people who wanted to establish what we call alternative oyster culture farms, something that I'm promoting. They recently advertised that, and a person could get up to like $60,000 to help establish their farm. 14 people applied. 14 people applied for the grants. In other words, a lot of people don't know about what's going on. It's part of my effort, and I hope part of your effort too, to help people understand we have a resource, and we also have support from CPRA, Wildlife and Fisheries, LSU, Sea Grant, to put these farms into testing and into application.
Well, we thank you for that information, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, sure. It's on the bottom of that paper.
Got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Ms. Carlene.
Mr. Taylor Plaisance, come to the podium, Mr. Plaisance. State your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
All right, Mr. Plaisance, ordinance number 5084 says that members of the public can address the council 2 times in a 1-year period on the same information. So you won't be able to address the council tonight on anything with the MHU or travel trails with FEMA, but you can talk about the street lights and police patrols that you did list.
Okay.
All righty?
That's no troubles. I mean, it was more just to give an update that we actually did start getting MHU showing up.
Just remember your name and address in the 3 minutes.
Taylor Plaisance, 264 East 123rd Street, Galliana, Louisiana, 70354. I can question street lights. It don't matter if I can ask Daniel. Daniel talks to me 2-3 times a week.
She can't hear you, Mr. Plaisance.
Minute, can't hear you. Speak in the mic.
Daniel talks to me 2 or 3 times a week, and it's his question since October. They went across to this side. He's the elected official that's not sitting in the chair. They're supposed to get these answers for y'all to give to us. Y'all can say they're coming, but when? Now, I completely understand. You know what I mean? I'm not picking on anybody, just stating facts. In the last month, I've had 12 break-ins and the 11 storages that I got left out of 150. There are signs of hope dealing with FEMA coming together. Every time I come up and speak at this mic, it seems like my park's starting to grow back. Can we start having a meeting once a week? People will be back at home in less than a month. Everything they did developing for me is pretty much staying empty. Why they're running aluminum wire? I figured it out. Because it takes them 6 months to get it hooked up. And the biggest thing that's getting stolen right now is copper. So why would they want to put copper underneath all these trailers that's just going to sit there for 6 months with nobody living in them and just waiting, twiddling their thumbs to get the weatherheads hooked up? Everybody's getting hit with it. Now, they put a grid. It's all aluminum.
Mr. Plaisance, that's FEMA again. We need to stick to streetlights and police.
So I'm a tax-paying business payer to the taxes, and I can't address my business that pays taxes to the parish to fund garbage, to fund anything, dealing with if I don't make this business come back together, this business supports part of the parish's efforts to stay as a unity.
The ordinance that I quoted earlier says you can do it twice within a 1 year period.
You mentioned FEMA to me. I'm mentioning my park. I never said that anything other than building a power grid out of aluminum. It takes them 6 months. You referring to them as FEMA. I never did. I'm calling them them.
Okay, it's
You
them
understand?
then.
You understand? I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm whoever you want them to be. Everybody that don't know. Because that's all the answers I get. I don't know. Me, you. I'm not paying for it. You don't pay taxes? You need to get audited?
Okay, that's it.
You know?
Thank you,
I mean,
Mr. Plaisance.
I'm not trying to be rude, and I'm not trying to be mean to anybody.
That's
Y'all
okay.
jumping on
Thank
me
you.
because I'm addressing a subject over roofs for people's heads. That's it. I came on a positive note to y'all. I came over here with a smile on my face this time. I didn't come in aggressive. I didn't come in other than the part of I got broken into, asking see if we can get a little request for a little more police patrols on the few mini storages we got left with no street lights. Okay?
Okay.
That's the
And
thing.
that's a sheriff's
And-
office
and
issue, and I will call in
It's
an
pointless.
extra
It's
patrol for
pointless.
you.
I got 12 different item numbers. 12 item numbers, and you know what you do? I even asked them. I said, I need to quit donating to y'all. Y'all scared that y'all bulletproof vest won't work? Y'all scared to get out your car and use a flashlight? You know, making around a community block with buildings that have hiding spots. In my situation, after that many break-ins, it seems like somebody would be coming down both streets on each side of my storages. The few I have left,
Have you reached out to the sheriff or someone?
I reached out.
There?
I reached out to all of them.
Okay.
The trouble is that I can't stay up all night and
Right.
make them do it.
I understand
But
that.
I stay up all
But
night and
I
I
will
protected
call and make
myself.
sure that they understand your
You know?
concerns. I'll pass that along to them
And-
personally
and-
for you. And thanks for coming, sir.
And from now on, I'm not gonna come in and address the public because the public's been addressing me. After the last meeting that I've been to, I've had over 15 people that came to me and they are asking to be referred to J&K Reynolds Park, to be moved there because of the man that stood up here and fought for the community and not for a dollar. I fought for salvation and coverage.
Yes, sir.
nothing-
And I
nothing
tell
about
you what,
anything
from
else.
me to you, that what you're doing has been very noble. And continue
like I
the
said,
fight,
I mean-
because you are gaining traction.
And the next one, I'm gonna come back and talk, and I won't refer towards anything dealing with that part. Is gonna come in and it's gonna refer toward the FOIA that's gone on 8 months that I submitted. Then I got a quote. I got a letter sheet. But also on that letter sheet, one of the man's names that was addressed on that legal document, his name was scratched off, and somebody else's name was put there.
All righty, sir.
Things like that shouldn't happen.
I got it, Mr. Plaisance.
if-
The time
if
is
I-
up and we do need to move on, so
If-
thank you very
if-
much.
If I need to address anything more, I'm gonna get my man that represents me to start speaking for me.
That's fine, sir.
Because I'm guessing y'all getting aggravated with me, but I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Plaisance. Ms. Carlene? All righty. Item I, council reports, news and announcements. Mr. Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, gentlemen. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about on the last agenda on the resolution.
Mr. Plaisance, we are trying to conduct a meeting. Well, leave quietly, please, sir. You're welcome to stay, but we're trying to conduct a meeting. Mr. Jones.
Yes, I want to talk about a resolution that was on the last month agenda. We want to talk about facts and fiction of that resolution. The fiction was, Mr. Lorraine, that you indicated that I want to insinuate and force Mr. Boudreaux to hire somebody. Mr. Boudreaux called a few councilmen and told them pretty much the same thing. But the facts is that that resolution was placed on the agenda, simple reason because Mr. Boudreaux, when he ran for that position, to be appointed to that position, he committed to hiring minorities or giving minorities a chance to be able to work in the registered voters office. I held his feet to the fire. The last 4 people he hired improperly advertising. I requested to advertise through this parish. Mr. Boudreaux told me the state did not allow that. I called the state. The state said there's no such thing. They would love, he can advertise anywhere he wants. It's his call. In return, I went to talk to Mr. Boudreaux. He blew up. So his resolution came on the agenda. We furnish a good part of that salary in the registered voters office. The people in this parish, minorities and majorities, deserve a chance to fill out an application and work in that department. As of from 2017, June 2017 to present, I don't believe it's 5 applications came from this parish. The others from Shreveport, Alexander, wherever out of town. The people he hired was handpicked. And I know you know about that, Mr. Lorraine. It was handpicked. One applicant came from out of the parish. They advertised on Thanksgiving. They shut it down to Monday. To Tuesday, Wednesday, she was hired for the parish. There's no way you can do an application like that. All I asked for is that last resolution to request the registered voters to send a copy of advertisement to the parish human resource to be publicized for anyone in this parish to know about the job and apply for it. That's the facts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Otan.
Yeah, I just, after last weekend, I just want to make sure I comment about what's been going on in our area. And that is through COVID, governor shut us down for festivals. Of course, Hurricane Ida threw a loop in there too. But this past weekend, we did have La Fête du Monde, the Festival of the People, right here at the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 90. And it's a festival by several nonprofit organizations of Lafourche Parish to generate funding for various projects that go to great goods in Lafourche Parish. So I just wanted to say thanks because the sponsors came out in droves, regardless of COVID and Ida and what they're personally feeling. And I want to also give a heartfelt, thanks to all the people that came out and visited over the weekend and spent their money that's going to end up coming right back into the community. But lastly, I'm just here to say thanks to the droves and droves of volunteers that showed up and made this such a successful festival, because you always have to remember that it's 100% volunteers out there putting these festivals on. So I was thankful for a great weekend, and I'm hopeful that everyone else that participates in festivals and fundraisers has good weather, because it's been a rough several years, not just COVID and Ida. I'll also mention the Trojan Athletic Association has a Crawfish Ball this Saturday at the Pavilion, and the following Saturday, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, is going to be the VFW in Raceland. I believe it's the following Saturday for their Crawfish Ball. So anyway, come out and support these nonprofits that they put funding back in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Otem. Mr. Melvin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wendell. This weekend also is the Thibodeau Fireman's Fair. It's been 2 years. We're very excited. We have a 3-story roller coaster. It's going to be a lot happening. People are very excited because we like freedom in this country, and we haven't had that in a while. So, again, come out, have a good time from Thursday evening to Sunday. We have a Fireman's Fair parade, and we're just praying for good weather because we know we're going to have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, I just want to say that on April 21st, Steve Scalise, Congressman Scalise, came toward the Foosh. Usually comes every year, but the last 2 years with COVID and all, he didn't get to show up. But they came this year, and he was able to bring six other congressmen, 3 ladies and 3 guys. One was from Minnesota, one was from Florida, one was from Iowa, Arkansas. And it was pretty, you were talking mostly about oil and gas, and about trying to find people to work. It's not only a problem here, it's a problem everywhere as you go. And so I happened to be there, and I was able to sit at they call it a round table, but I thought it was square. But anyway, I sat at the table, and Mr. Chasson was there, the parish president, him and I. And the reason why I went is Port Fourchon is in my district, so I pretty much go just as much as I can go. And unfortunately, they had a picture taken and put on Facebook, and for some reason I was omitted. I wonder why. They didn't put old Daniel. But that's okay. And it's fine with me. And then the next thing is yesterday, Bo and I were here with Student Day. And how many they had, Bo? About 10 or 12? 10 or 12 young ladies and men from the 3 high schools in the parish. And Bo drilled them pretty good. You know, he did a good job, Bo. And they were all excited. And the only thing I told Bo, I said, Bo, you better watch out. They're on the side to run against you, man. You know, if they run against you, they might be in trouble. But anyway, that went over well. The president was here. David Breaux was here giving a report. And I think Dylan gave a report. I had to leave, but it all went real good, you know. And my last comment is, I don't care who you are, where you go, when you apply for a job, it's always handpicked. And we all know that. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Got a motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones for item J, public hearing and ordinance. Any discussion? All in favor in open public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 5, ordinance amending ordinance number 1739 to reduce the speed limit from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour on X-Bypass Road, Raceland, Louisiana, Ward 3, District 4, Parish of Lafourche, State of Louisiana, providing for the placement of speed limit and caution children to place signs as follows. 1 20 miles per hour speed limit sign to be placed midway on the right-hand side of the road when turning onto X-Bypass Road, and 1 20 miles per hour speed limit sign to be placed midway on the right-hand side of the road when traveling back up the street on X-Bypass Road, and 1 caution children at play sign to be placed on the right-hand side of the road across from 105 X-Bypass Road when turning onto X-Bypass Road, and 1 caution children at play sign to be placed on the right-hand side of the road at 105 X-Bypass Road when traveling back up the street on X-Bypass Road, and providing for penalties for the violation thereof. Motion by Mr. Melvin, second by Mr. Groh. Any discussion? Second call, public discussion. Third and final call, public discussion. Any council discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 6, ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Subchapter B of the Code of Ordinances, Section 101 and 103 to establish and define wards and precincts and establishing polling places. Motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. We do have an amendment from the floor on this. Ms. Carleen, can you please explain the amendment?
Yes. Can y'all hear me? Is my mic on?
Yep.
Item number 6, in the caption, we're going to be deleting subchapter B and replacing it with Article 2. Also in the caption, we'll be deleting 101 and 103 and replacing it with Section 2-36. In the therefore of the ordinance, we'll be deleting subchapter B and replacing it with Article 2. We're going to be deleting Sections 101 and replacing it with Section 2-34, deleting Section 103, replacing it with Section 2-36. And on page 15, we're going to be deleting Section 3 and replacing it with Section 2. We'll also be deleting Section 2-103 and replacing it with Section 2-36.
Can I get a sponsor for the amendments? Motion by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Back to original item number 6 as amended. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item number 7, ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Subchapter B of the Code of Ordinances, Section 102, to establish and define councilmatic districts. Motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. We also have a motion from the floor, an amendment on this one. Ms. Carleen, can you do the honors on that one?
Yes, sir. In the caption of item number 7, we'll be deleting subchapter B and replacing it with Article 2. Also in the caption, we'll be deleting Section 102 and replacing it with Section 2-35. And in Section 1 of the ordinance, we'll be deleting Section 2-102 and replacing it with 2-35.
Can I get a sponsor for that motion? Motion by Mr. Araby, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Back to ordinance item number 7 as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 8, ordinance approving a consent to assignment and amendment of surface lease and canal use permit between the Louisiana Land Exploration Company, LLC, South Lafourche Levy District, and Lafourche Parish Government for the Golden Meadow Boat Launch, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said assignment and amendment and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Lorraine, second by Mr. Adams. Any public discussion? Second call, public. Third and final call, public. Any council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 9, ordinance approving an assignment of surface lease between Energy 21 GOM LLC and Lafourche Parish Government for a 0.06 acre tract of property, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said lease and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any public discussion? Second call, public. Third and final call, public. Any council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, being Ms. Chasson. Item number 10, ordinance approving an act of donation between Energy 21 GOM LLC and Lafourche Parish Government for the donation of a communications tower, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said donation and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any public discussion? Second call, public. Third and final call, public. Any council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 11, ordinance amending ordinance number 6581 that approved a lease agreement between Alan Lebreton, ALLAIN LEBRETON, in case I pronounced it, Company LLC, and the Parish of Lafourche for leasing property to operate and maintain an existing 300-foot self-supporting for placement of communication antennas tower, which tower is owned by Lafourche Parish government, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second again by Mr. Araby. Any public comment? Second call public. Third and final call public. Council discussion. Mr. Grow.
I don't know if you needed to read to make a note of not, you said for placement of, does that matter? It's the new one. Maybe I didn't look at the new agenda when I got here.
Was it right, Brett?
Did it get adjusted? For placement of, scratched out.
Okay.
I don't know if it matters for the record.
I'll reread it. For Ordinance 11, amending Ordinance Number 6581 that approved a lease agreement between Allen LeBreton Company, LLC, and the Parish of Lafourche for leasing property to operate and maintain an existing 300-foot self-supporting communications antenna tower, which tower is owned by Lafourche Parish government, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Any public comment once it's been reread? Second call public. Third and final call public. Any more council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 12, ordinance approving a servitude agreement between Tillman J. Griffin Jr. and Carmen Goday Griffin and Lafourche Parish government in the Raceland area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Araby, second by Mr. Otan. Any public discussion? Second call public. Third and final call public. Any council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 13, ordinance approving a servitude agreement between Lester Martin Jr. and Haley Martin and Lafourche Parish government in the Raceland area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Araby, second by Mr. Adams. Any public discussion? Second call public. Third and final call public. Any council discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, being Ms. Chasson. I have a motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Adams to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, being Ms. Chasson. Item K moves into proposed ordinances. Mr. Jones, will you do the honors?
Item 14, proposed ordinance approving the issuance of not exceeding $25 million for hurricane recovery revenue bonds of the Foosh Parish Hospital District, Service District Number 1, and providing for matters in connection therewith. Moved by Mr. Lorraine. Item 15, proposed ordinance approving the servitude agreement between Happy Cow Cattle Company, LLC, and the Lafourche Parish government in the Lockport area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Moved by Mr. Otan. Item 16, proposed order providing for a 2022 supplemental appropriation 22-007 within the 2022 operating and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget, and adjust the budget and to add capital outlay projects, and authorize the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transaction as provided for by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Moved by Mr. Wendell. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Moving into item L, resolutions. Item 17, resolution approving the Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire as part of the legislative auditor's requirement for completion of audits, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said document and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, being Ms. Chasson. Item 18, a resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Lafourche Parish government and Energy 21 GOM LLC for the donation of a communications tower, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Grow. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 19, resolution amending resolution number 22-026 and approving amendment number 1 to the cooperative endeavor agreement between Lafourche Parish Government, Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office, and Fire Protection District Number 3 for cost sharing the lease of property to operate and maintain an existing 300-foot communication antenna tower, which tower is owned by Lafourche Parish Government, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said amendment agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Oten, second by Mr. Araby. Any? I must have the wrong copy. Is that the only other one? I'll reread that one. I'm working off of an old copy here. Resolution amending resolution number 22-026 and approving amendment number 1 to the cooperative endeavor agreement between the Foosh Parish Government, the Foosh Parish Sheriff's Office, and Fire Protection District Number 3 for cost sharing of the lease of property to operate and maintain an existing 300-foot communication antenna tower, which tower is owned by the Foosh Parish Government, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said amendment and any and all relevant documents. Okay, that motion is by Mr. Oten, and I believe it was seconded by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes with 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention being Mr. Wendell, and 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item number 20, resolution supporting a grant application for fiscal year 2021 and 2022, funding through the State of Louisiana Office of Community Development, Community Water Enrichment Fund for Lafourche Parish Water District Number 1, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Melvin, second by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 21, resolution reappointing 1 member to the Hospital Service District Number 2 Board. Motion by Mr. Araby. Mr. Araby, who do you have?
1 vacancy, 1 reappointment, Dr. Stephen Moore.
Dr. Stephen Morris, second by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 22, resolution appointing 1 member to the Recreation District Number 2 Board. Motion by Mr. Araby. Mr. Araby, who do you have?
1 vacancy, 2 applicants, Maximilian Acosta.
Maximilian Acosta, second again by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 22, resolution appointing 1 member to the Recreation District Number 2 Board. Motion by Mr. Araby. Mr. Araby, who do you have?
It's number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 8.
23.
Right. Mr. Araby, who do you have?
1 vacancy, 1 applicant, Mr. Toby Dufresne.
Mr. Toby Dufresne, second by Mr. Oten again. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 23, resolution appointing 1 member to the Recreation. Let me go back on this.
Do you have the right agenda?
I don't think so. I got it right now. 24, correct. Resolution appointing 1 member to the Lafourche Parish Commission for Women Board. Motion by Mr. Grove. Mr. Grove, who do you have?
Joyce Frost.
Joyce Frost, second by Mr. Oten. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 25, resolution appointing 1 member to the Sewage District Number 7 Board. Motion by Mr. Melvin. Mr. Melvin, who do you have?
Rebecca Robichaux.
Rebecca Robichaux, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes, 8 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 26, resolution approving change order number 3 from Sea Level Construction Incorporated for the project titled Cyprian Drainage Pump Station Improvements, increasing the contract price by $93,775, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said change order and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Excuse me. Motion by Mr. Melvin, second by Mr. Adams. Drew a blank there. Any discussion?
I want to say,
Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, on this CPN pump station, I can tell you, this has been going on for a long time, too long. And we got, there was 3 pumps and 3 engines put in there. They were pulled out, and now you're putting 3 more pumps and 3 engines. So my question is, instead of $3.5 million for this pump station that's been going on forever, it's probably going to end up being $7 million. And it was similar to LaRose, in which they never really had much problems. But my question is, where are the engines and the pumps? The ones that are not supposed to be good.
Mr. Orgeron?
So the original engines in the pumps, I'm sorry. So the original engines in the pump from Cipriano Pump Station, the pumps are at the, what we call the landfill at our storage yard. We're seeing what options we can to utilize those. The pumps are inferior, to say the least, but we might be able to use the piping system, and I can explain that in more detail later. The engines are currently being utilized. We had them dynoed to see if we could reuse them on the station. They didn't have enough horsepower to be utilized at the station from the start. So we've taken those engines and are working them in a design at another pump station. We do think that they're going to be of adequate horsepower. They're actually 100 horsepower more than what we need at the next pump station. So it will be a cost savings somewhere down the line.
So you're going to more than likely use them somewhere else?
Yes, sir. That's the plan.
Okay.
And we have accurate info on the dyno. So we will be able to utilize them. Long story short, what happened with these engines, they weren't a continuous duty operation rated engine. So they are subpar from the horsepower requirements that were given to us when they were sold to us.
You could point the finger to who you want, but that whole project has been one big screw up, and it should have been done by now.
Couldn't agree more.
And the funding was there for that project. That was started with Miss Randolph at the end, not at the very beginning. So, but whatever.
Thank you, Mr. LeBron. Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Mr. Adams?
Who was on the council when that project was approved? Okay, just checking.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item 27, resolution supporting a grant application under the fiscal year 2022 Raise Grant for the Valentine Pontoon Bridge Rehab and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otas, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Ms. Chasson. Item M, Parish President, Department Heads, Directors, and Managers, Reports, Presentations, and/or Updates. Number 28, Finance Representative to present the monthly financial report as required by the state agreed-upon procedures for March 2022.
Mr. Chairman, per our normal course, we emailed those reports out to you guys last week for y'all observance, and we'll do a full report coming up.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Meeting.
Item N, questions for the administration. Anyone with specific questions for the administration? Mr. Adams.
Dylan, I know we talked last meeting about the project in the Zalmans. Any headway about the engineering, getting all that done?
Yeah, we actually met with the engineer last week. He's working on getting us a contract. They have given us 2 separate estimates on a phase 1 and phase 2 approach. So as soon as we get the contract from them, we'll start to at least get survey and some engineering done and phase this project out as much as funding allows us.
Sweet, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Lorraine.
Yes, I'll cut it real short. I've only asked for a couple of things tonight. Give Mitch a chance, put him on the hot seat there. No, what's the status on the Levy boat launch? Because here we starting to get to May, shrimping season's getting ready to open, and we still to square one. Is there anything gonna be done there soon? Or I'm asking. I got people calling me every day.
So I'm glad you asked that question because we solicited quotes for that at the end of last week, actually Friday. So we should be getting that information back so we can start moving forward with making some temporary repairs at boat launch so we can get it usable.
Okay, and then the hottest issue I got, and I'm sure some of you guys might have it, is trash. I mean, everywhere as you turn around, there's trash. And I know there's probably trash throughout the parish, but I did a little research, and as you know, River Birch is our trash pickup on a regular basis, not the emergency or DRC or whatever. We have 1 truck on the west side of Ward 10 and 1 on the east side. There ain't no way that they can handle this. No way. They can't. They are picking up little piles. They're not picking up the big piles. In 22 days, on the west side, they went from 1st Street to 54th. That's not even half of Ward 10. With Golden Meadow, on the west side, we got 313 streets. And they're at 54? They got to get all the way to 313 in 22 days now. Now you jump to the east side, and we have 189 streets. And I have no idea where they at on that side. All I do is see piles of trash. So is DRC or whoever it is going to come back into territory? So, because a lot of people are calling, and I understand, they're breaking their houses. They don't all get their money at the same time. It's just a total mess. But if we could get some trucks down there, catch up again, and then in probably another 2-3 months, make another round, I guess. You're going to make another round and probably 1 or 2 more rounds. I mean, that's what I see, unless I'm wrong. I'm not always right, but I'm wrong very seldom. But anyway, you can tell me when we're going to see some trucks down there, because I got people calling me like crazy.
So I know we've talked about this on more than one occasion. I know Archie's mentioned it several times at other council meetings. At the end of this week, Witt O'Brien should be completing their assessment. So they have to go out and they have to take GPS recordings, et cetera, where all these piles are, and actually figure out how much material's on the ground before DRC comes back in. They'll be getting us that analysis at the beginning of this coming week. Then that way we can actually engage with DRC so we can get them in. So we will be getting DRC back, yes. And
But
they
if
will
I
be picking
remember
it up.
right, at one of maybe the last council meeting, they said they were going to do that right after Easter, on the Monday. That was a week ago.
That's correct. That's when DRC.
Am I right or wrong?
That is when Witt O'Brien was going to come in to start doing the actual analysis to figure out what we need to pick up.
Well, I can tell you, we need
I
some
agree
trucks.
we need to, but we have to go through a process, otherwise FEMA won't pay us for it. And we have to be able to recover that money because it is
And
a
don't
quite
forget,
expensive
don't forget
endeavor.
Leeville, although there's not many houses and all left, they got a few people trying to start up their business again. Don't leave them out like we did last time.
So
I
we
talked to
mapped-
the parish president, he said they were gonna start from Leeville coming up.
So we
That
mapped,
shocked me, man. I had to grab my heart. You know?
I bet you don't grab it very often, but be it as it may, we mapped from 90 south and they're in the process of completing that. So we'll be getting trucks soon.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll be very brief. That's all I'm gonna talk about.
Thank you,
I got-
Mr. Lorraine. Mr. Melvin.
Yes, thank you, sir. Real quick, Dylan, any traction, fairway to Percy Brown, dumping something in there, some sandbags or something?
I actually met with Submar yesterday. They gave me some very rough quotes.
Rough quotes?
Yeah,
Like the engineer or?
higher. So,
Higher?
yeah, unfortunately,
We're gonna
yes,
have
sir.
to get in there with manpower then. something.
Yes, sir. We'll have to have more discussions on that.
Yeah, real quick too, I appreciate all the work y'all are doing, and real quick, I just wanted to comment, I know Cyprian has been a headache, and I'm glad Mr. Adams brought it up, and I'm glad Mr. Daniel brought it up. Look, that was always, I asked, you can go back and read the minutes, is that project on par? I went to the site, is everything gonna be fine? We're always told, yes, 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 everything's beautiful, everything's sunny. We were hearing stuff outside the meeting, but everything we always got was, hey, sunshine and rainbows. Well, come to find out, it seemed like it was shrouded in mystery, just like the Choctaw Levy debacle, which is going back a whole nother administration. So again, sometimes I scratch my head and wonder, but anyway, lastly, I'm not gonna ask Mr. Daniel, but I was gonna ask earlier if the congressional delegation touring Foosh got to pull some crab nets or something, you know?
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Otan.
Yeah, so I originally pressed my light to answer Daniel's inquiry because Mitch and Dylan and Archie have made it crystal clear because every single day that's my calls. And so I knew April 18th they were coming in to do an assessment and it'd be a 2-week assessment. So I was crystal clear on that. But I'm getting the same bulk load of calls. And I'm continuing to remind people that contractors are responsible for removing the debris themselves. One of the biggest things I see right now going on is these contractors are just pushing entire houses right to the road. And so that's gonna take forever to get that going. But the one question I do have is, in this assessment that's occurring, because I failed to ask this question, and last night on a call, it came to light, along the state highways, is this assessment also including the state highway, or it's only gonna be what we were handling before?
We're gonna actually we're doing the assessment on the state highways too, because we have a CEA with them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Otam. Mr. Araby.
Mr. Dillon, I know you and I had a little meeting prior to the council meeting. We discussed quite a few projects, but I don't recall, did I talk to you about South Leon Drive? Can you give me an update on it? I know according to the maintenance report we read every day, I think they got started on it, but I'm not sure if they got finished on it.
That's correct. I don't think they finished the project, but they did start on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Araby. Mr. Grow.
Dylan, I know we have a couple things on the planning commission tomorrow, a new subdivision field chase and things like that. With the growth in the northern part of the parish, I know you guys were, for the last couple of years, been looking at redoing a lot of our, building code and things like that, looking at subsurface drainage, looking at different things. We've seen a lot of these developments come in and they pumping houses on 60-foot lots, and on top of each other. It works in some areas. It works in some subdivisions, but I don't think the answer in the future is going to be filling a cane field up with 66 lots to where it really should be 30 lots. Just put it out there. Where are we with that? I mean, these people are doing everything within the law, the way it is now, within our code, but our code needs to be revisited, and I think that's the elephant in the room in a lot of cases, and I'm
Yes, sir.
getting calls about it. It's just, where are we?
I couldn't agree more. Since 2020 when we originally got here, we've been trying to redo the master drainage plan and then take that master drainage plan, learn from it, and then redo our subdivision regulations. Unfortunately, we as the administration, we can recommend subdivision regulation change, but we can't adopt them, right? That's a separate entity. But we do plan to get this, between COVID and the hurricanes, and I know that's an excuse for everything, and I don't want it to sound like an excuse, but funding has just been a major issue for this master drainage plan. We do have a plan in place. We are hoping to execute that towards the middle or end of this year. Hopefully, once we learn from that, next year we can start some of these amendments to the subdivision regulations. The planning commission and the council can then adopt them, and then that could be more.
Yeah.
I guess.
We have some very good engineers, and when they put in our parish that are stamping these things, in my opinion, and they're not going to stamp something if they don't feel that it's going to drain, and they're not going to take on, or create future problems with water, and they're going to be self-sufficient. But I mean, when you look at concrete, and a little bitty retention pond doesn't always cut it. When you're filling up a cane field that was holding water for years.
And I will say this, once we do this master drainage plan, and we want to build a committee of the engineers in parish to tell us what needs to be studied in this master drainage plan, and then also to help us write the regulations for subdivision regulations. These are the guys that are going to work here. We obviously value their input. But that's something we're going to do moving
And
forward.
look, my evaluation was very elementary, and I don't think you need to be an engineer to look at some of these things. Or when you have these neighbors that have been living there forever, they knew that they had a potential for development behind them, and of course they want to stop it for quality of life. But then you have the other good arguments about, worried about drainage when, they're seeing things come up to their front door. But I guess my question, and you were kind of alluding to it, like we did with that tax incentive committee, to keep that employer and Bayou Blue, and looking at stuff. I really, you have a good department, but I think you need to look outside. I don't know. I'm not saying hiring people, but there's people within the parish that might have some good input that can help us and speed that process up, because people are coming north fast.
Sure.
Especially after they get in the insurance rates and things like that.
And
And
look,
it's happening.
I will say this too, Councilman Grow. We have, at least 3 times since I've been here, reached out to a third-party engineer and had them review these developments, because we either had drainage issues in the area, we're worried about the size of development, we're worried about pump station capacity. So we do often go out, and while that isn't a requirement of the current regulations, we are, trying to protect the safety, health, and welfare of everybody in this. So we're looking at it, I guess, a little bit further than the law requires us to do it at this point. Just to, be able to answer your questions and be able to answer the planning commission's questions when these developments do come up.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Grow. Moving on to item O, Parish President's final comments. Mr. Ogeron, anything final from administration?
A few items. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we talked about the debris status. Wood O'Brien's is going to be finishing up their assessment. We're going to have to get the assessment over to the debris company so they can start planning out and figuring out how many trucks they're going to need so we can get them in here. On the light status, I know there was some comments with regards to lights and whether or not the council gets any information. Just want to let everybody know, and I'm sure many of y'all have seen it, but on last Wednesday, there was a report that was sent out from Energy to us, and I say us, they came to the administration. Some of the council members was originally copied on it, but we sent it out to everyone, and I say everyone, all of the council members. Just real quick, we had 3,900 lights that were out after the hurricane. Thus far, 2,667 have been repaired. Right now, we're looking at 1,300 left, 1,328 to be exact. And they are running into some supply issues. That was noted in there, but they are still working, and they've been out. They've been out all over the place. We've seen them in various parts of the parish. So that is, in process, and we'll continue to share that with you. One of the other things we talked about Cyprian, I want to keep just a note out there. I know Bo's aware of it, and there was some questions, but the pumps will be tested on a test stand in Florida where they're being constructed, actually sometime on or about May 24th. And there they'll certify the pumps themselves and ensure that they actually pump what they're supposed to, and then from there on after they'll be shipping them over to us. Last but not least, we were talking about some funding, and it is in the ordinance that was proposed tonight, but our second round of ARPA funding, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, we should see receipt of that money probably the latter end of May. There's some processes that Renita and Parish President need to go through to be able to engage with Treasury to be able to make the deposit like we did last year. So that is also included in our proposal. And it is used for some of the capital projects that we have that y'all had requested. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ogeron. Item P, adjournment. Motion by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. With no further business, the Foosh Parish Council regular meeting of April 26, 2022 be adjourned. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Ms. Chasson at 6:41 p.m.